place, we'd like to invite you to simply close your eyes, relax, rest in the divine presence, and hold space.
Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. 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 Omega Dantaya Vidmahi Vakrajandaya Dhimahi Tanno Danti Prachodayat. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. 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 Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. 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 Om Vakratundaya Mahakaya Suryakuti Samaprabha Nirvigyam Kuru Me Deva Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Jai Ganesha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vigna Karadura Hamari. Jai Ganesha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vigna Karadura Hamari. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. 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 Suklambaradharam Vishnu Sasivarnam Chaturjam Prasannavadanam Dhyaye Sarvavignyopashantaye. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Jai Ganesha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vigna Karadura Hamari. Jai Ganesha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vigna Karadura Hamari. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. 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 Ganapataye Namo Namaha.
Namaste. Welcome to our weekly online Satsang. Satsang being a fancy Sanskrit word for a spiritual community. It means community of truth, literally. But that's just when two or more people on the spiritual path come together to share their journeys, to share their challenges, their breakthroughs, their insights, their collective presence. Each of us carries the presence and inner silence. When we come together and we share that together and pool it, it's deepened exponentially. So glad you're here tonight. Hope you find a local satsang or meditation group or spiritual group that you relate to with other people who are in the process of awakening and the flowering of their hearts. That's very special, and when we find people like that, we have more in common with them than people from our own faith traditions or temple or whatever our religious or spiritual background was. There's something about the process of awakening that is contagious, but also everyone's journey, whether you're a Buddhist or a mystical Christian or a Sufi, the journey into higher states of consciousness has certain parallels for all of us, even though our journeys are unique. So we share during the satsangs the flowering heart blessing, which is a transmission of divine grace, awakened consciousness, and pure unconditional divine love. Its purpose, as the divine has told us, is to catalyze awakening and transformation. But also it brings about the flowering of the heart in oneness with the divine and unconditional love. It brings healing of relationships, healing to our bodies, to our souls, our minds, our thoughts, our feelings. So really, the flowering heart blessing works on every layer of our being from the inside out. The divine wanted us to be sure to tell people that it belongs only to the divine. It doesn't come through the filter or control of any spiritual hierarchy or organization, any avatar or master or saint. It comes directly from the divine itself. And the divine said, give it to people. Don't charge for it, because it's not yours to sell. It's mine to give freely as a grace gift of love. People want to be initiated, to share this blessing. The divine said all they need to do is receive it once. Once you've received this blessing, and you are soaking in it right now, all you need to do is on the inside, just invite the divine to use you as a vessel or an instrument of grace. If someone is at a distance, you can hold them in prayer or in meditation in your heart and just invite the divine to pour the flowering heart blessing through you to them. What will happen? They'll receive catalytic grace that will initiate the awakening process. If they're already in the awakening process, it'll smooth the way. It will dissolve blocks and hindrances. If they're already awakened, it will take them deeper, because it's not a destination. You know, awakening is an ongoing journey of infinite expansion. There's no end. So please join us in sharing the flowering heart blessing all through the satsang this evening. And we hold the intention for anyone that watches the recordings of these satsangs a day later, a year later, 3 years later, they will have exactly the same experience of the presence and the flow of grace and blessing. So we include them in our intentions tonight. And if you have the opportunity, do to give it through the laying on of hands to someone in your physical presence, but you need their informed consent. You need to let them know what it is, what it's about, and that it's going to do something. It's going to catalytically begin to cause a process of transformation in them. If they like that, yay! Just put your hands lightly, very lightly on their heads. No weight of your arms, just very light touch. And invite the divine to pour the flowering heart blessing through you, and that's it. You don't need to do anything else except keep your hands there until you intuitively feel you're done. The divine does it all. And it's amazing how it opens people to experience the tangible presence of God, of the divine, which used to be really hard to open people to. Took a lot of work. Nowadays, there's so many powerful blessings being shared, but we love this one in particular because it centers in the divine dwelling in the center of our spiritual hearts. And that can free us from being enslaved or addicted to people outside of ourselves, charismatic leaders, spiritual teachers, places of power that we feel we need to be linked to in order to get awakened. When the answer is inside of you all along. Your true essence, your true nature is the divine itself. And it is already fully divine and already fully enlightened. Your true self is already enlightened. So the real journey is to go deep, deep, deep inside and discover our own true essence. And the Flowering Heart Blessing is a really wonderful help for that. What else? Please, I see there are several people here more than have given us a love yet. So if you are here now, if you drop in and watch this later or even during this next week, please go in and give us a love or a like if you're on Facebook Live. If you're watching on Vimeo, you can enter a comment in the chat and just give us your name and say hi. And we go in at the end and look and send special blessings of love and spiritual hugs. So appreciate it. We open it at the beginning to questions about the spiritual journey, about awakening, about divine union, about meditation, prayer, past lives, future lives, inner life, outer life, anything about the spiritual journey, and best if it's a question about your own journey and something you're personally experiencing and would like more clarity, more light. That nudges the divine who pours inspiration out to me and Suzanne and some others in the group, and we share insights that are helpful to everyone. So look inside, ask that still small voice in there, is there something I might ask in satsang tonight that would help me and everybody else? And then type it in. I'm going to come back to Michael's question in a few minutes. But I'm going to read us some quotes. I tend to do that every week now while people come up with questions. That I draw these from little articles from a website called inspiringquotes.com. It's really pretty cool. Tonight's article and collection of 16 quotes is called 16 Quotes to Help You Find Your Inner Joy. And the author of this article is Christina Wright, a coffee-fueled writer living happily ever after with her family in the suburbs of Richmond, Virginia. I can relate to a lot of that, except the Richmond, Virginia part. We're in Florida. And here is what she writes. Though used synonymously, happiness and joy bear a striking difference. While happiness is a positive feeling resulting from external circumstances, joy is an internal feeling of peaceful elation. As spiritual teacher and author Eckhart Tolle describes it, quote, pleasure is always derived from something outside you, whereas joy arises from within, unquote. So while happiness is a positive, pleasurable feeling that comes from something actively happening to us, joy is that serene internal sensation we may describe as being happy for no reason. Joy is often accompanied by gratitude, a profound awareness that while there are plenty of things beyond our control, there is something good and right happening at our center. To be joyful, literally full of joy, is to embrace life in spite of, or maybe even because of, the inevitable pain and sorrow that accompanies it. Allow these quotes to remind you of those joyful moments in life that aren't loud and splashy or even visible to others. Let's begin. Here's the first quote. There are those who give with joy, and that joy is their reward. Khalil Gibran. Joy is what happens when we allow ourselves to recognize how good things are. Marianne Williamson. If you carry joy in your heart, you can heal any moment. Carlos Santana. Things won are done. Joy's soul lives I'll start over. Things won are done. Joy's soul lies in the doing. William Shakespeare. Everyone has the capacity for joy. Joy is available to all of us. Ross Gay. We cannot cure the world of sorrows, but we can choose to live in joy. Joseph Campbell. This joy that I have, the world didn't give, and the world can't take it away. Billy Porter. At some point in our lives, we will all be broken and bruised, but we are not alone. We find joy together. We persevere together. Dr. Jill Biden. Like the rainbow after the rain, joy will reveal itself after sorrow. Rupi Kaur. No soul that seriously and constantly desires joy will ever miss it. Those who seek, find. C.S. Lewis. Cling to joy, audacious and unbridled joy that looks for light in everything, even in your waiting. Morgan Harper Nichols. Joy is contagious. When people smile at you, you tend to smile back, and that can create a virtuous, joyful circle. Ingrid Fetell-Lee. The ghostly winter silence had given way to the great spring murmur of awakening life. This murmur arose from all the land, fraught with the joy of living. Jack London. Taking the worry of the world on my shoulders is not right. My New Year's resolution is to stay humble and be joyous. Queen Latifah. We simply cannot know joy without embracing vulnerability. And the way to do that is to focus on gratitude, not fear. Brene Brown. The joy of creating is the truest joy. Priyanka Chopra Jonas. Those were nice. Mm-hmm. I've read some of those before in other little articles, but it was nice the way that Christina put it all together and what she wrote at the beginning. So, back to Facebook Live. Michael Christopher writes, if God has a plan for us, whether it be somewhere, meet someone, do something with our life, etc., can we thwart His will? If so, how can we repair it? Well, okay. Some people have a problem with that statement, God has a plan for your life. And you put it, if God has a plan for us, which suggests uncertainty on your part that there is a plan for your life. There's something to be said for both things. First of all, the future is not written in stone, even though some people like to foretell the future. They say you can go into the Akashic records and it's all already written, you can see it. But my understanding is that the future is in the process of unfolding, and it can take myriad turns depending on decisions and choices we make. We have this great thing called free will. which means that we're not automatons. We're not just like robots that are programmed to live out a puppet-style life with no choices, no freedom. Then there's no point to any of this, really. Nice story. But we have free will. And that means I have the freedom to turn to the right or to the left or choose some other path. Now, speaking of the divine lives outside of time, in a sense, in the timeless, infinite, where the past, present, and future are revealed simultaneously right now. So the divine sees the outcome in advance. What the divine does not do is force us to choose or to go down a certain path. But the divine, giving us freedom to choose, already knows what we're going to choose without taking our freedom away. So in Scripture it says, those whom God foreknew, it says he knew us before we were ever conceived, before we were ever born, we were known to the consciousness of the divine. And the divine knows what we're going to do without forcing us to do it. It just knows. And we have all the freedom of choosing and making mistakes and failing and getting back up and going on. But that scripture says, those whom God foreknew, he predestinated to be conformed into his image and likeness. And that's some deep stuff. But there is a degree of predestination that the divine works into our path to help us along the way, because the divine knows us and knows where we're going. And so knowing what our choices are going to be can help us by predestinating little things along the way. Or if we're going to do something really dumb, like plow our car into a truck head on, and it's not our time, the divine might just predestinate a flat tire. If you have a calling, if you have a destiny, a divine destiny, which we might call dharma, or a divine calling in our lives, that's amazing. If you find your dharma, if you find your path, and you begin to walk it, it almost seems like magic what begins to happen as we come into harmony and consent to the divine will for our life. So I'd rather say the divine will than the divine plan. Because divine plan sounds like God planned it out and it's thrust on us. But no, but there is a will that we are beckoned to. Many are called, but few are chosen. But those who choose to follow, okay, what if there is such a thing and you found that way and you decide to thwart it? Can you thwart God's will? If you can't thwart God's will in your own life, there is no freedom. You know? I mean...
But why would you want to?
Well, you wouldn't, but we do that just like adolescents in establishing their own independence. There's a spiritual adolescence where some of us will, God will say, don't do that. Live this way, eat right, live right, do good. And we go, no, I'm going to be bad. And that cannot permanently thwart the will of God for your life if you have a powerful calling like St. Paul. He was a murderous scoundrel, Saul of Tarsus, who was going around imprisoning and torturing Christians. And God had another plan for him. And he didn't really have any choice about it. It was like lightning came from heaven, a flash of white light, and struck him down off of his horse on the way to Damascus to imprison Christians. And he was blinded by the light, and he said, "Who are you, Lord?" Which suggests that something inside of him knew. But the divine told him, here's what it's going to be shown you what you're going to have to do, and you have no choice. So there are certain individuals, but even then, like Moses had a powerful calling in his life. He split the Red Sea, worked these fantastic miracles in Egypt, but he did on occasion thwart God's will. He did personally commit murder at the beginning of his 40 years of exile in the desert. And And then when they came out of Egypt, Moses got really ticked off at the people of Israel because they kept complaining, "Did you just bring us out here to die of thirst and starvation?" And he said, "Oh, how long do I have to put up with you?" And he took his staff and he struck the rock, and water began to pour out of the rock for the people. And basically, this is a paraphrase, he said, "Look what I have done for you." And God didn't like that because he was supposed to be glorifying the divine and not taking credit for the miracle. He was supposed to say, no, we haven't been let out here to die. We need to trust the divine presence. Everything's going to be fine. Look, ding, look what the divine is giving us. The light is pouring out water to us. But he took personal credit. And it didn't wreck. He did everything that he was destined to do, that the divine had called him to, in spite of that. But at the very end, the whole mission was to lead the people of Israel safely out of slavery in Egypt, through the wilderness to the promised land in Palestine. And when they got right there, right on the other side of the Jordan River, God said, "Stop. You will never enter in. Because of what you did, because of certain things, you don't get to go there with them." And that day, he took Moses home. But it says he was 120 years old. His vision was not dim, and his strength was unabated. He had the strength of a 20-something-year-old and the vision of a young man till he was 120 and died without sickness or disease. That was a pretty good life. But there were instances where he thwarted things. And the way to set it right is to gain sensitivity and consciousness, which can happen in prayer and meditation. And when you see how you may have rejected or thwarted the plan of the divine, turn to the divine and say, "Gee, I blew it. I'm sorry. How can we make this right?" And the divine just starts jumping for joy when that happens. All the divine wants us to do is to see what we have set in motion that was destructive, cop to it, and acknowledge it, and just say, "Help." And that's it. And then help comes and it begins to turn itself around. So, yes and no. We can't really thwart the will of God per se, no. But we do have choices, and we often use that freedom to choose less than optimal paths. You want to add to that?
Yep.
Okay. David writes, "If there are no accidents, and we are introducing people into our frequency to understand that we are attracted at that time, are the lessons that we are to learn from this interaction necessary? Or can we intrinsically know when to release that person from our life? Sometimes it is not readily discernible." Well, first, you started this statement with an interesting posit. If there are no accidents. I've heard that, there are no accidents. And I understand that on a certain level, but there are accidents. We live in a universe that has an element of chaos working in it, and randomness. And sometimes you're just standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it's not because you're a bad person. You're just in the wrong place at the wrong time in a very sort of chaotic, random world in which light and chaos are interacting. And the balance has not yet been achieved. So, okay. But let's suppose there are no accidents and everything in life is for some reason, and I suppose to teach us lessons. That's the line I've heard. There are no accidents. Everything that comes into our lives, we have chosen, we are creating, and it is to teach us a lesson. There's an element of truth to that, but there's an element of this that is beyond our personal cognition or choice. It's something bigger. But supposing there are no accidents and we're introducing people into our frequency, to understand that we are attracted at that time, are the lessons that we are to learn from this interaction necessary? Or can we intrinsically know when to release that person from our life? Sometimes it's not readily discernible. Well, because it's the mind asking the question. Okay, there's a spontaneous attraction, serendipity, and we know that this person's being introduced into our frequency, into our energy range, and us to them. The lessons that we're able to learn from this interaction, are they necessary? Good question.
Yes.
Some people would say everything is necessary. I think a lot of the lessons we draw to ourselves probably weren't necessary if we had learned that lesson like in the last lifetime, or the last time we offended someone and were insensitive and didn't get it. Then that's going to happen again and again, and there will be these life lessons that will repeat until we get it. And do we know, and can we know intrinsically when to release that person from our life? Sometimes it's not readily discernible. That's true.
I think intrinsically, if you have worked through inside of yourself what charge or what trigger you have that is in conflict with somebody else, and that person comes into your life and you get triggered or you get a charge, then you can have the consciousness to be aware that you were just triggered and that you were charged. And whenever you can be at peace with things that used to annoy you, then those kinds of people that come in to show us our lessons won't be necessary anymore. But you can also do that work without having to be around the person. It's just the awareness and the consciousness that we have inside of ourselves that needs to be front and center.
When a relationship becomes toxic, we often think it's time to release it. But one of the things that was pointed out to me in India, one of the early lessons, they would say, "You Westerners," they had a certain attitude about Westerners. "You Westerners, every time the interaction in a relationship gets rough, you want to release that person from your life and move on to another relationship." And they said, no, 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 no. I mean, what Suzanne said, if it brings up charges, there's something to learn from that. Some relationships are meant to, like parents and children, we don't just toss them out of our lives because they annoy us. It's very difficult sometimes in romantic relationships. And that's what the monks were pointing to. In the West, you guys tend to just go from one lover to another lover to another lover. Over the years, you have this string of lovers, and you're not growing. And you're repeating that same resistance that leads to the breakup is happening in every one of those relationships. And that's because it's you. The outer world, and I don't mean you, David, I mean it's us. The outer world is a reflection of the inner world. So if there's an issue in a relationship, we stand a better chance, unless it's toxic or abusive. And that's where it takes discernment. But if we just hang with it, there's such an opportunity for growth. And maybe that's an opportunity for me to grow through my resistance and my charges and my thinking this is all about me and what I have to give people. Or maybe it's for them. Maybe by hanging in there with certain members of my family through life, and friends through life that have been really difficult, in and out of the garbage pail, these relationships. But I was led to hang in there and honor those bonds. And as a result, I've seen this growth in their lives, but it isn't like in the first 6 months. Not even necessarily in the first 6 years. I mean, anybody who's married probably has been in a deeply committed relationship has been challenged at certain times to honor that commitment, or this is just throw up my hands and walk away because I don't need to deal with this. They're not receiving my light. But you're right. Sometimes it's not readily discernible. And it's not supposed to be discernible to our minds. I don't think our mind it needs to come to the point of releasing someone. It's almost like ejecting them from our life. We should always release people. I mean, every time they walk out the door, we should release them. If you really love something, Fritz Perls, the father of Gestalt psychology, said, if you really love something, release it. If it's meant for you, it will return. And if it doesn't, it cannot be helped. So it's always, to hold lightly to these encounters and relationships brings an element of freedom from attachment that opens the door for so much grace. And discernment is of the heart. So to try to discern, is it time to release this person, or should I keep working on this thing, requires discernment of the heart, and not superficial heart. I mean, because there are layers of the heart that are very emotional and passionate and easily perturbed. We're talking about the depths of the heart that are serene and filled with inner peace and discerning, but not with physical eyes or with the reasoning of the mind, discerning through the eyes of the heart. And I think that's the only way to know, and then you'll have a certain peace. You've prayed about that relationship, you've meditated it, whatever. You come to a place where there's just peace. Oh, this chapter's done. It's time for us to release this and do something else. Or, there's something about, I don't get it, but I'm supposed to remain anchored here. And Maury writes, because we blame others. Yeah. 10-2.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the outer world's just a reflection of the inner world. So.
If you're blaming others, you're blaming yourself inside. And it's just a projection outwards. Same with criticism and judgment and all of those fun little. There
was a leader in the spiritual movement that Suzanne and I were formerly a part of for a number of years, who he and I we just butted heads. We're in conflict a lot. We just didn't easily get along and flow in leadership together. And once I was at one of his meetings, and he was talking about charges and our blindness to our own issues. And he said, like me and Michael, he said, we see each other's charges with such clarity, but we don't see our own. That was probably one of the clearest things that ever passed between us, But it was the recognition that the conflict that I was feeling with him, and I could discern where he wasn't open to the light that I had. But he could see where I wasn't open to the light that he had. I thought he was there to learn from me. He thought I was there to learn from him. Surprise, surprise. We're all here to learn from one another. Yeah. And St. Paul said sometimes it's the most dishonorable and weakest member of the community that deserves the greatest honor, the greatest attention. We get the most from them than the excellent leader who's so wise and discerning and all of that. Good question.
Mm-hmm. Very good question.
Any others? Or we can just move on down the line. Okay, I don't think we have anything else to announce just now. Okay.
Yeah.
Then let's close our eyes and invoke the presence in the depths of our hearts. I'm sure many of us have come to the Satsang tonight with issues where we would like clarity. We would like that kind of discernment that David was talking about. We may have other issues. Perhaps we feel that we've sort of stumbled from the path of our own Dharma, our own Tao. And we want to get back in harmony with the universe and with the will of the divine. Some of us may have troubled relationships. Some of us may have physical issues and be in need of physical healing. Everyone needs to become more awakened and for our hearts to flower more fully with divine light and unconditional love. The divine already knows all of these things that burden us, all of our needs. So I want to invite you tonight to just release the weight of any unresolved puzzles, issues, conflicts, pain. Release it all to the presence right now. This presence loves you unconditionally, exactly as you are. By nature, it yearns to fill you with peace and joy and love and draw you into the deepest union with itself. It is all-powerful and all-wise and knows how to accomplish all these things. So release all of your cares and just receive the flowering heart blessing. Drink it in, breathe it in, soak it up. Just keep taking it in. And whatever arises, just release it to the divine and keep receiving the light. Just keep drinking it in. You could envision us sitting in a circle together and lift up your hands with your palms open, facing forward, and let us all, with our eyes closed, invite the presence to pour the flowering heart blessing through us to all the others in the circle. As it's pouring through us to them, it's pouring back to us from everyone. Now just relax. You can put your hands somewhere in your lap. It's good to keep the palms open, turned upward. When you're ready, open your eyes and begin to make direct eye contact with Suzanne and or me, both of us, either of us. Just keep looking at least one of our eyes and don't stop. You can switch from one eye to another, but keep looking at one of our eyes. During the light meditation, Suzanne and I are flooded with divine light and grace. And it comes pouring through us to you, especially through our eyes, the doorways of the soul. All you need to do is just keep looking, and the light will come streaming out of our eyes, in through your eyes, into your spiritual heart, causing the light of awakening and the fires of divine love to burn brighter and brighter and brighter within you. Nothing to do but just keep looking and receive. meditate for a few more minutes with us as the great sentence within. Or find a spot nearby to lie down in Shavasana. That's a yoga pose where you lie on your back with your arms at your sides, your palms open, turned upward, and your eyes closed, and just let yourself dissolve with gratitude in the presence. We love you very much.
Much love, light, and blessing.
Until we meet again, know that the divine within us beholds the divine in you, and we bow to you. Namaste.